Look at the silhouette. The soaring white shells over the water make the Sydney Opera House instantly recognizable. It is the defining symbol of Australia. The original plan called for 4 years of work and a budget of $7 million. Instead, the process dragged on for 14 agonizing years, swallowed $102 million, and ultimately destroyed the career of the genius who designed it. Back in the 1950s, the Bennelong Point waterfront held zero cultural prestige. It was an industrial tram depot, sitting heavily on a site completely lacking any infrastructure for a world-class arts venue. To put an architectural masterpiece on this specific spot required surviving financial ruin, political betrayal, and a series of seemingly impossible physical hurdles. In 1957, a global design competition drew hundreds of standard, blocky, mid-century entries. A relatively unknown 38-year-old Danish architect named Jørn Utzon won, with a remarkably simple, fluid sketch of concrete sails. The sketch was a beautiful concept, but it lacked any measurements or defined geometry. Without exact angles or a radius, it was impossible for engineers to calculate gravity loads or the sheer force of harbor winds. Despite this massive blind spot, the government wanted to score quick political points. They ordered construction to begin immediately, long before anyone had actually finalized the design or run the structural math. Forcing a building site into motion for a shape that mathematically did not exist yet guaranteed catastrophic physical failures right out of the gate. The first major problem was the ground itself. The bedrock beneath the harbor was too loose and porous to support a massive structure, forcing crews to drill hundreds of mass concrete piers deep into the murky ocean floor. While they fought the mud, the team also rushed to pour the concrete support columns for the roof, doing so entirely in the dark because the roof's final dimensions hadn't been engineered yet. When the actual weight of the finished roof structure was finally calculated, the engineers realized the pre-built columns were nowhere near strong enough to hold it. Every single one of those initial concrete columns had to be rigged with explosives, completely demolished and rebuilt from scratch. Pushing construction out of order to appease politicians meant millions of dollars and years of human labor were literally blown to pieces, throwing the entire timeline into chaos. Up in the sky, things were worse. The engineering team ran some of the first computer simulations ever used in construction, and the results proved the free-form roof shells would simply collapse under their own weight. For years, the project stalled. Then, in 1961, Utzon had a sudden revelation that would become known as the spherical solution. He realized if you derive every sail's curve from the surface of one massive sphere, they share the exact same geometric curvature. Builders no longer had to custom form thousands of unique pieces. They could mass-produce standardized precast concrete ribs on site. Constraining the architect's free-form artistic vision to one strict, rigid geometric rule was the only way to make the building physically possible to manufacture. To assemble these massive ribs, the team had to invent entirely new equipment, including custom kangaroo climbing cranes designed to crawl slowly up the structure as it grew. Holding 15-ton concrete segments in midair required aerospace technology. The crew used epoxy resin for gluing them, then threaded the ribs with high-tensile steel cables, pulling them incredibly tight in a process called post-tensioning. By 1966, the budget was spiraling out of control. A new, hostile government took power, froze payments to Utzon, and cornered him until he resigned and left the country, never to return. A young Australian architect named Peter Hall stepped in to inherit the mess. He successfully engineered the massive chevron glass walls, reinforcing them with custom steel to withstand hurricane-force winds whipping off the Pacific Ocean. This victory over wind, weight, and geometry was ultimately overshadowed by a political betrayal that stripped the visionary architect of his own masterpiece. On October 20, 1973, 14 years after breaking ground, Queen Elizabeth II officially opened the building. The final $102 million bill was ultimately paid off by a state-run lottery. While early performances suffered from acoustic issues in the main hall, decades of modern renovations and brilliant hidden engineering, like subterranean hydraulic lifts, have fine-tuned the interior. Utzon did live to see his vision vindicated. In 2003, despite remaining in Europe, he was awarded the Pritzker Prize, architecture's highest honor. The Sydney Opera House stands today as a monument to the engineers and architects who refused to accept the impossible. If you like this video, please subscribe and press the bell button. The building stands as proof that radical design, when forced through the gauntlet of precision engineering, can produce a silhouette that defines a continent.